Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Tanner from TanmanBaseballFan.com. This is going to be the third video that I've done of my Jose Canseco baseball card collection. The first video was of my Bowman cards. The second video was of the Collector's Choice run that I have, and now we're going to go into Donruss. The Donruss run that I have is pretty big, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the first decade from 1986 to 1996. Now, the first thing that I wanted to bring up is, like I said before in one of my other videos, I don't want this to just be a video of my collection. I want this to kind of serve as a History 101 class of baseball cards. So because we're talking about Donruss, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of Donruss. And as many of you know, 1981 was the first major year that baseball actually had Donruss cards. And that was actually the same year as Fleer. So in 1981, you basically had a choice of three different wax packs that you could pick up. You could have the Donruss, the Fleer, and the Topps. And every single one of those packs, they would have a piece of bubble gum. So that's right, it wasn't always that Donruss had puzzles, and it wasn't always Fleer that had the stickers. Back in 81, they had gum, and so one thing that's interesting and kind of unfortunate is that Donruss and Fleer didn't have use the powder or whatever it was that Topps did. So the gum stick would actually stick to the card. So there wasn't necessarily any gum stain residue. It was just literally kind of plastered onto the card. So I don't know if that's what it was like in 1981 or how long it took, but all of the packs that I had seen from 81 Donruss and 81 Fleer when I was a kid back in the late 80s and early 90s, they were always plastered and cemented onto the first card of the pack. And so it's kind of a bummer in one way, but in another way, there wasn't really anything too exciting in the 1981 cards for Fleer and Donruss. So you weren't really losing much. So what happened was Topps had taken Donruss and Fleer to court because they wanted to be the only ones, Topps wanted to be the only one to be able to create baseball cards and sell them. Well, the court ruling went in favor of Donruss and Fleer, so that's why we have, in 1981, three different card companies making cards. But the problem was they were not allowed to do gum, from what I recall. So that's why Donruss in 82 started coming out with the puzzle pieces. And so that was kind of a typical trademark thing of Donruss. You know, you had one card that had three puzzle pieces in it per pack, so you can create this huge puzzle of a Hall of Famer or anything. So anyways, I'm going to go to my website, CansecoCollector.com, and I'll go ahead and pull up the Donruss cards in a second. But to further go along with what's going on with Donruss back in the early 80s, they featured some pretty interesting photographs of cards, to say the least, and of the players rather. And 82 and 83, they weren't so hot. I mean, we look at Donruss right now, and so we see 82 obviously has the Cal Ripken Jr. rookie, which everybody loves, and 83 has the rookies of Ryan Sandberg and Wade Boggs and Tony Gwynn, so everybody loves those as well. But 84 was really when they kicked it up a notch, and everybody loved the 84 set, especially because of the Don Mattingly. Now, the Don Mattingly was probably the hottest card of the 80s for a while. Everybody wanted it. It was highly coveted. There was a limited production run from what I recall as compared to the 81, 82, and 83 releases. And of course, 85 came out, and 85 was a tough year for condition reasons because it had an all black border. 85 Donruss also, for the first year, had a parallel 1985 Leaf, so the Canadian version. And then came 86. And so that's where we're going to start off our little journey here in this video, is 1986. So I'm going to go ahead and type in Donruss and see what comes up. So to begin with is actually a custom that I did. This is a 1985 rainbow style Donruss, so you probably can't read it, but I had put in here, instead of Donruss, where an 85 Donruss would normally say, it would say Donruss here, it says Tanner's. Just as a fun kind of little thing, and put certified autograph issue, and I had Jose sign this when I was at his house. And in the background, if you take a look closely, is my Mushi's grocery store, little fake grocery store deal that I made a story up on from TanmanBaseballFan.com. I put that in the background. I thought that'd be kind of a little fun addition, because Canseco actually started playing baseball, Major League Baseball, in 1985, but he doesn't have any major releases. So I figured, why not? Let's go ahead and add one of him in my collection, so that way I have something that nobody else does. And I don't know, I think it turned out pretty good. So you see the little mustache there, so much respect there, Jose. And anyway, so going forward, we actually have quite possibly the most iconic card of his ever, which is the 1986 Donruss Rated Rookie. Now, for those of you who don't know, I mean, this card can be had for $5 now or something like that on eBay. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, there was a huge craze for this card. You could sometimes, at some point around there in the late 80s or early 90s, you couldn't touch this card for $150. It was a huge card, especially back then. I mean, nowadays, $150 for a card of some kid that's barely out of high school on a Bowman Chrome card is nothing a lot of times. But back then, I mean, you know, you had the mass production of everything. So, but this card was huge, especially because it was pre-eBay, and it was the hottest one to have. So, going forward, this is the 1986 Leaf version of it. So, if you remember what I told you at the beginning of this, in 1985 is when Leaf started. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Leaf sets didn't actually have all of the baseball cards from the Donruss version. It was a very abbreviated set, and I think they would focus a lot on the Canadian players. Well, the interesting thing is that the 1986 Leaf baseball card of Jose Canseco never actually existed. So I created this, and this is a custom card. And so I'll go ahead and show you on video here what they look like with each other, next to each other. So here's the 86 Donruss. This is a real one. And then there's the Leaf one. So you see the backs. I say custom card, not for resale on this, because I don't ever want any of my work to get in there and somebody mistake it for a real card. But because this is for my collection, I just wanted to make a fun little Leaf version there, since it doesn't really exist. So anyways, going forward, I have an autograph version here as well. And this isn't pack pulled or anything like that. This is an in-person autograph version. And I don't really collect in-person autograph cards at all, other than the ones that I create. But because it was such an iconic card, it's 1986, I made that an exception to the rule. I don't mind picking up autographed in-person rookie cards of his. So the next one, this is kind of a curious card here, and I'm going to go ahead and show this on video too. I'll actually go ahead and pull out my entire run of 86 Donruss in this box. So you have all these, right? Well, this is kind of the odd bird. I picked this up several months ago, and as you can see, it's black and white, and the back of it is black and white as well. And this was sold as preprint promotional. Now, I don't have any information on this card, aside from the fact that it was picked up from somebody at a baseball card show in the 80s, and the dealer said that these were quote-unquote preprint promotional cards. Now, I wouldn't put it past anybody for somebody to have just photocopied this card and sell them like that. The card stock's kind of a little weird thing, so I don't really, that lends itself to the thought that perhaps there might be something that Donruss had to do with it, but maybe not. It could very well just be some sort of a fake deal, which is fine, because I like all pieces of baseball history. As a matter of fact, I would love to get my hands on a quote-unquote authentic fake 1986 Donruss Rated Rookie, because I know that there's a lot of fakes that were printed because that card was so hot back in the late 80s and early 90s. I'd love to have one of those for my collection. So going forward, I don't do graded cards, but I do have a graded rookie PSA 10, because I have PSA 10s of all of his major rookie cards. And I mean, shoot, for the A6 Donruss Straight Rookie, I figured, hey, let's definitely go for this. I also go for unopened rack packs and cello packs. And so this is the one that means the most to me, probably because of Canseco, obviously his most iconic card on the front. But the reason why I collect these unopened rack packs and cello packs with him on the front is because that was such a huge thing to us kids back in the late 80s or early 90s when we're going to Target or Costco or any of these places that sold baseball cards. It would be a fantastic thing where if you would go to any one of these stores and you see your favorite player on the front, I mean, man, like slam dunk. There's no guessing. You know for a fact that that's going to be a winner. So that's why I had picked up that. And just a great memory. Now this is kind of an odd deal. This is a pin. I don't really collect pins, but this was in part of a collection that I had. And this kind of made sense to pick up just because I love runs of the same type of card. And so this kind of looks like an A6 Donruss Straight Rookie. So I thought that was kind of neat. And here's a 1986 Donruss Fan Appreciation Day put out by 7-Eleven, which is actually not true at all. This is a complete custom. This is just another thing that I put together just as a fun little thing for my collection. And I did the rainbow background because I love doing those sorts of things, like just tweaking the real issues into card issues into something that might have looked kind of neat, because Donruss did that. They changed the colors on some borders. They just never made a rainbow thing like this. So anyways, like I said, it's a custom. It's not a real card. It's just a fun little thing that I did for my collection. So in A6, Donruss also came out with this little 56 card box set. If I remember, it's 56 cards. And it's called Donruss Highlights. Now, Donruss Highlights would talk about a lot of the things back in the previous year, in this case 1986, about all of the highlights for baseball. So they of course had to make one of Jose because he is the American League Rookie of the Year. And of course, with this, I also have the autograph version, the PSA 10 gem mint version, and the absolute most coveted, most rare version, the Highlights white letter version. This is a very, very, very hard card to find, and it's very desirable. And from what I understand, all of the cards in the set have a variation like this, and I never see them online ever for sale. So it's a very hard to find card, and so it's probably one of the higher end. Well, it's definitely the most expensive 80s Donruss card I have. Leaf, that's a different story. But anyways, as far as Donruss cards go, this is probably the highest dollar one I have in the 80s. Going forward, this is a minor league legend 86 Donruss. It's a style 1986 Donruss style card. It's not really a Donruss card because Donruss didn't put this out. And this is actually an unlicensed Broder card. I've got a whole bunch of unlicensed Broder cards in my collection. And so for those of you who may recall this or find this picture familiar, this was when he played for I believe it was the Madison Muskies back in 1983, if I remember correctly. So this is probably a picture of 19-year-old Jose Canseco on a 1986 Donruss style baseball card that was probably created by somebody in 1990 or something like that. This picture and pose was actually used on, I believe it was Beckett Baseball Card Monthly's first minor league price guide. So anyways, going forward, we have the 86 Donruss The Rookies set. And then there's an autograph version of it, PSA 10. And then we go into 87 Donruss. And 87 Donruss was a beautiful set. You had Barry Bonds in there. You had a McGuire rated rookie, Rafael Palmeiro rated rookie. The 87 year was just absolutely packed. And this is Canseco's second year card. If you excuse me, I'm going to take a drink real quick here. Getting a little parched while I'm talking here. I'm talking a little too much. By the way, for anybody who makes it through all of my videos, I've got to give you some sort of award or something like that, because I know I'm very long-winded when it comes to this stuff. But anyhow, 87 Donruss was a great year for cards. 87 was altogether. They made a boatload of them, but everybody loved the 87 Donruss, and the 87 Fleer, and the 87 Tops with the wood grain border. The Fleer, if I remember correctly, was a $7 pack at one point. And I remember my dad and I going to a baseball card shop and me seeing those packs going for crazy money and thinking, man, $7 a pack. The packs that we get are normally like 50 cents. And my dad actually surprised me and he decided he was going to pick up one. I thought, man, my mom is going to kill him if she finds out. And so, he sits down and puts all the cards that he open up in the pack, because the dealer opened up a pack before that and he pulled out a Bobby Bonilla or something like that, which was huge, or Kevin Mitchell or something like that. And my dad got absolutely nothing. So I was like, oh, dang it. $7 down the drain. That was a huge thing back then. So anyways, but this is not about Fleer. This is about Donruss. So let's go back to Donruss. Here's the rack pack. This is the Donruss All-Star. And I think this is oversized, if I remember correctly, an oversized card. So it's just another subset that they put in. Then we have the Diamond Kings. And then there's the Diamond King Jumbo, which I believe this is like a 5x7 or so. And we're not going to go through the Leaf versions of this because Leaf is its own thing. We'll go through that in another video. And then, of course, the rack pack of 87 Donruss with his Diamond King on the front. 87 Donruss highlights. And so this is where I think they did a great job. They replaced the black border with blue, and the card is actually glossy. And it's of the Bash Brothers there. It's Canseco McGuire, of course. And, I think this card really pops. It's a nice version of it. And if you go on my site at tanmanbaseballfan.com, it's somewhere in the blog, somewhere buried somewhere. I think I did some other color variations. I might have done an orange border buried bonds like this or something. I don't recall, but it was kind of a neat deal. So this is a 1987 Donruss rainbow border McDonald's. It's a custom card. I made it myself for my collection again because I just came up with the idea. And what I did is I actually did a nice little run of these cards. 87, 88, and then there was 90, I believe, of Donruss customs that I made. They're of Tom Glavine and Craig Biggio for 88. So Glavine of 87, Biggio of 88, and Frank Thomas of 90. And I actually met all three of those guys at the TriStar show, and I got them to sign it, and they loved seeing him. So, like I said, it's just one of those things I really enjoy doing, like messing with the borders and everything, and doing these little sponsored food issues because I'm a sucker for the food issues. And forward, here's the 87 Donruss opening day. And a little note on 87 Donruss opening day. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but Barry Bonds was in this set. And I'm probably going to get this wrong. It's one way or the other. But there was, who was that? Johnny Ray. There's a Johnny Ray card in this, and he was labeled as Barry Bonds. And so that's a very rare card. And I remember at some point it was going for $100 or something like that, 100 or 200. I don't know what it's going for now because I'm not actually paying attention to them. But I remember every time I came across some 87 Donruss opening day with the eggplant colored border. I don't know why they used that color. That was the card to have, was the Johnny Ray that was named the Barry Bonds. So, and then of course, this is the 87 Donruss wax box bottom. And so, I'm sure many of you recall in the 80s and 90s, they would actually print different variations of baseball cards and put them on the actual bottom of the wax box. Now, this says it's the dark card stock, and there's a light card stock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you on camera here the difference. And this is just kind of a neat thing for player collectors in general to be keeping an eye out for if they have this. And the same variation exists for 1989 Fleer. So here's the two cards. But if you look on the back, I don't know if you can tell in this, but there's a noticeable difference in card stock, which I love these kinds of variations. So it's something I ran across a while ago, so it's kind of neat there. And like I said, Fleer, for 89 Fleer, they had a dark card stock and almost a white card stock, if I remember. So anyways, going forward here, we have 88 Donruss, and so this is the cello pack. This is the first year that Donruss did cello packs. So, and this is a very curious set. There's not really a whole lot of interest in 88 Donruss. As a matter of fact, whenever it comes to junk wax jokes, 88 Donruss gets probably the brunt of all my negativity, just because it was a mass-produced, we'll call it an interesting design. But it's part of my childhood too, so I can't knock it too much. But there's not really a whole lot of interesting things going on. So as a player collector, though, you can really appreciate 88 Donruss a lot more than the typical person. And I'll show you why. You see right here, let's forget about these two here, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 variations. So cello pack, of course. You have the factory set variant, and then let's see. Let me see if I can pull this up here real quick and show you the difference. Because this is basically kind of like a three-prong deal here. I'm just going to go through all of the 88 Donruss that I have in here, the regular versions. So here they are. Yeah, that's a better light, I guess. So we'll see if we can find a few things that are different. So right off the bat, can you tell anything different? These 3, they have the same types of borders right there, right? These 2 are different. So let's go with these first 3 first. So you see the backs look all similar. But if you notice, the text actually stops here as opposed to here on these 2. The reason why is because this comes from a complete set, and these 2, from what I recall, come from wax boxes. And this version is actually, I read this online, and I believe this is from somebody that I know by the name of Grace Collector. That I think I read this from one of his articles or postings online. That this is between 30 and 50 times more rare than these cards. It doesn't mean a whole lot though, because you can still pick up the set for $5. But for player collectors, we love this stuff. Especially, like I said, they made millions of these cards, right? So even if it's 30 to 50 times rarer, there's still a boatload of them out there. Now, why do I have these two if they're both wax box or pulled from wax boxes? Well, the reason why is because there's a variant here as well. You might not be able to tell on camera here. Let's see. Yeah, you can. Okay, so that ink right there says INC, so 1987 Leaf ink, and then 1987 Leaf ink period. That's the difference. There are there's a period on one and there's not a period on the other. So the question is, what is up with these guys here? Well, these came from a rare team book set that was distributed in schools. Okay, so you'll see the 2 here. This is glossy, if I remember correctly. I'm actually going to look. I believe this is glossy. Yeah, so you see this. This is a glossy version, and this is not. The only way you can tell the difference, though, in the holders is because, first of all, this blue is a little more different than the others, but also, both of these have different, like a reverse border, like I mentioned earlier, than these. So there you go. There's 5 of them right there. And let's go back to my site here. So we'll scroll down. Here's 88 Donruss, Baseball's Best. So that's a new subset that they'd come out with, and it's kind of a neat thing. They came out with an orange there. It's kind of a neat deal there. I have a lot of fond memories from when I was growing up with all these neat little subsets and everything. So I really enjoyed that. Anyways, going forward, this actually kind of goes into the first year that I had collected baseball cards at all, which was 1989. One of the neat things also about 1989 Donruss is that there were various different types of cards within the set, and it was certainly a lot more colorful. I really appreciated the color and the design of it. So the first one in here is the 40-40 Club version of this. So as everybody knows, Jose Canseco hit 40 home runs, 42 home runs actually, and stole 40 bases in 1988. So all of the baseball card makers decided to capitalize on this and give him his own special type of card. So it's kind of neat to have this version of it. So here's the Rackspace version. Here's the Rack Pack version. Rackspace is a hosting company actually that I use for my company. And here's the regular version. Now you'll see that there are 4 versions of this. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I use the same picture because they're all basically the same cards. So I'll go ahead and show you on camera here the difference between all 4 of them. Here they are. And on the back, I'm not sure if you can see this well or not. I know it was picking up better before. Oop. Okay, well, I'll just point out the areas here. Right here, 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 and here. It says copyright 1988 Leaf Inc. Printed in USA, and then underneath as well is where we want to pay attention to. So where it says denotes Lead League, so you see right here, there's 2 asterisks, one on each side of denotes. Well, there's 1 here, and there's 1 here, and there's 2 here. Well, the copies of each, in other words, both of them that have 2 asterisks, one of them has a period after ink and the other doesn't, and same with the 1 asterisk. So again, a lot of people don't care about this stuff, but it is a neat thing for player collectors just to have another version, or all the other variations that they have for any type of card. So here's the Rack Pack again of the 89 regular version. I like to have a Rack Pack or solo pack if they make them of every single card type that was available in the Rack Pack version. So there's the 89 version of that. And then this is, oh gosh, I don't recall what this was from. I believe this might have been just an all-star set. So different colors, different color borders, definitely a neat thing. And so they had 2 in that set. This is one just that commemorates that he had the most votes to be in the all-star game for the American League. This is the Baseball's Best version. So the main difference on this, like you can't really tell aside from the picture of the regular versus the Baseball's Best version unless you take a look at the back. The back of this is green instead of orange. And then this is a blister pack bonus card. This one was actually only available if you purchased a blister pack, and if I recall correctly, this card was actually a part of the cardboard backing of the pack. So I believe you had to actually cut it out. It was definitely a neat little addition for Canseco collectors. And I found this kind of a neat little different variation. It's not this tint, it's just a horrible scan, but there is definitely a different pattern on the borders, which is kind of neat as well for any collector to have. And here's the Rack Pack version of the MVP. And I remember actually in 89 or 90, I was at a friend's house and we were trading. I had a couple friends that they were brothers, and they were huge into the San Francisco Giants. So we were like frenemies, I guess, because we were rivals. I love the A's and they love the Giants. And so we would trade whenever I get my Will Clark's and they get Jose Canseco, we would swap them. So I remember not seeing this MVP version of Canseco before, and I was like, oh man, that's really neat. So I had seen the 40-40 version, I've seen the regular version, but definitely not this version. So I thought it was a really neat design that they did. And so here the card is by itself. You'll see up here it's got the 1 asterisk And so this one has one asterisk with the period after ink. So there's 4 versions of this card as well. And then Donruss Grand Slammers. I actually never paid attention to this variation until the last few years. Because what you'll see is you see the different colors. It's blue to purple, then green to blue, blue to red, or purple to red, yellow to green, and then green to blue. And then, oh yeah, one more here. Looks like purple to red. So the neat thing is they actually made a version. I still need this one. It's called Donruss Blue Chips, and I have a Leaf Blue Chips version, which is very rare as well. But the Donruss Blue Chips, it looks just like this, except instead of it saying Grand Slammers, it says Blue Chips or something like that. I believe there's like a little arch, if I recall correctly, of what it looks like. Yeah, tell you what, let me look it up. I'm on the site here and I'll show you. Go to 1989 Leaf. And sure enough, there it is. And so the Donruss version looks just like this, but instead of Leaf, it says Donruss. So it's a neat thing. I've got a story about that whenever we go to the Leaf cards. It's a pretty amazing story. And like I said, I need the Donruss version of that. If anybody has one, let me know. So back to the Grand Slammers. I'm going to show you one thing on camera here as well. I didn't realize this until recently, which is kind of again, a neat little variation. So here you have all the different versions, right? Well, you look at this, they look the same. But if you look at the back, there is a black strip that goes on the right-hand side of this version. Now, you can't find any of the other color variations with that stripe. It's just the purple to red version. So if you're collecting your guy, whether it be whoever else is in the 89 Grand Slammer set, I don't know, Mark McGuire, Will Clark, whoever, you might want to keep an eye out for that, just to have a different variation there. Then, of course, you have the Donruss pop-up. Like they have a line here where you could fold it and then it pops out like this, so it actually sits on your desk or wherever you want. So I of course haven't done that before with it. I mean, it's not really a very expensive card, but I would rather keep it mint. And so that's about it for 89. Going into 1990, this is the big daddy of the junk wax era, I would say. So that 86 Highlights was a fantastic, the white letter was a fantastic card. This one I would say is even better. It's the Aqueous test or the Aqueous test. I've heard it both ways. But in 1990, Donruss was using water-based ink. And so this is kind of what the Aqueous test was. And so what they would do with those cards is they would stamp on the back Aqueous test. So that's what you see on the back of it. That's why I have a scan of the back where it says it diagonally here. So there's a lot of fakes out there. So you got to be very careful with this card to make sure the placement's perfect, the text, the spacing, and all that. You've got to be very careful with these. But this is one of my favorite cards in my entire collection because it's just so incredibly hard to get. And the word is that they were probably, if I remember correctly, they're supposed to be destroyed, but perhaps a Donruss employee might have taken some out of the trash or whatever and brought them back home or something and sold them later or something like that. So I love those kinds of stories that have to do with cards. But I think that's, if I recall correctly, that's what happened with that. So 1990, you have a lot of kind of the same deal here. So you see the ink, there's no period, ink with period. Of course, you have the rack pack. And then you have the splatter variation. So let's take a look at that. So let's say the landmark for this one is like a big dot right here, right? So they're completely different. So there's a massive dot right there. No massive dot right there. So it's kind of a neat thing. Now I noticed I put splatter variation ink period. I don't know if there's a a non-period version of this, so I'll probably have to look at that a little harder to see if there's something out there that exists. So 1990 Donruss Baseball's Best. I believe this is a glossy card. It's blue. And again, I'm a sucker for these types of variations. I think they're great looking. This is the Learning Series. I've got a folder on this too. I'm not sure if... Okay, yeah, here it is. Learning Series folder. So I think it was some sort of a school promotional they have. So it's really kind of the same border and everything, but it's just a different picture and has the logo down there. I realize that we're running a little long here. We're about 35.5 minutes, so I'll try to pick up the pace here a little bit. But going into 1991, this is a card that's called Tri Cards, and it's from a company that was called Dad's Kid. So what they did was they basically took 3 or 4 base cards, and they cut out the player with some sort of I don't know what it's called, a die cut or something like that, whatever it is. Cut it out, and then they put little foam pieces or something between each and made them pop out a little bit to give it a bit of a 3D effect. They put it in a case, they put it in a box, and then on the back of the box, a lot of times they would serial number them. They did this for Donruss and for Score, Fleer, Upper Deck, and Top. So I believe it was all the main players back then. And I believe that the serial number was typically around 10,000. There aren't nearly as many of those out there though, because from what I've heard, they got sued because you can't do that. So you can't do that with other people's cards apparently. So there's not too terribly many of those cards out there. They're like this, and not many collectors really, because in reality, it's just basically an aftermarket card. It's just somebody that cut out the players and stuck them on top of each other, and to give that kind of a neat little effect. 1991 Donruss All-Stars. This was in Series 1, so I was happy they had this in Series 1, but I was really hoping they had the regular version in Series 1 as well, but that came in Series 2 later. So I remember picking up these cards around Christmas time in 1990, and I thought it was cool because this design encompasses everything that the 90s were about. The late 80s, early 90s were all about the loud colors, and looks like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Saved by the Bell kind of theme there. So you look at this, there's an error and a regular on the back. Some will say A's on the stats, and some will say AL. It's supposed to say AL because it's an American League All-Star card, but so there's somebody goofed there. So anyways, this is a no period with ink, and then this one says ink with A's, and this back says AL, and it's ink period. Now I recently took off the no ink version of this because somebody told me that there's no such version as the corrected version with a no period, so that's not on my list anymore. This is a really neat thing. I love these things. This is a black and white paper proof from Donruss, and it's graded by Beckett. It's a little pre-production deal, and I don't really like these holders typically, but because it is a rarity, and there's probably only a small handful of these out there, as opposed to the millions and millions of the regular ones out there, I like to keep it in this case. So it's a really neat deal. Again, you have 91 Donruss Rack Pack, and it's next to his Bash brother there, Mark McGuire. Series 2. Now this is where it gets a little more tricky because there are so many border variations here as well. But you see the ink with period, no period. There's a period on this, and I've got to check to see if there's another version of this as well without the period. But take a look at the border differences. You have that there, you have that there, you have that there. So okay, so maybe there are only 2 border variations. Okay, that makes sense. So here's the rack pack for this. This was the card to get in 1991. It was serial numbered to 10,000, which was a massive deal back then. To only have 10,000, I mean, you could go through cases of 1991 Donruss and never touch an Elite Series card. That's how many they made. There's a lot of them out there. And I don't recall if it was 91 or if it was 92, but there were stories of people that would take metal detectors to Costco or any other place that would sell baseball cards by the case, and they would try to detect little metal pieces, whether it be like from the border or what. I don't recall again what year, is 91 or 92, and apparently some people found them. So kind of an interesting backstory there. 1991 Donruss Grand Slammers. This is probably what I was talking about here because of the border variations. Just watch the border variations change. You see, so that's kind of the same, kind of a neat little variation. Now you'll see the variation with the stripe on the back, just like 1989 Donruss's Grand Slammers. Only one of these versions had a version with the stripe on the back like that and without. So that was kind of a cool little thing that I just found out about recently as well. Here's the 1991 Donruss preview. So this was the card that was out to dealers, if I remember correctly. Basically just meant to show everybody what the design looked like or what it would look like. So you'll notice that it was a completely different type of picture. So this is significantly rarer than all the others out there. So the next one, I'm going to go backward a little bit here. 1991 Donruss, this is a custom version I did of Jose Canseco when he was on The Simpsons. So I thought this is a fun little variation. And here's a version that he signed, and he personalized it to Mrs. Krabappel. And if you all remember the episode of The Simpsons, Homer at the Bat, it was kind of a fun thing because the script really called for Jose and Mrs. Krabappel to have some wild romantic fling. And at the 11th hour, Esther, his wife at that point, did not like that, and as the story goes, it was basically a huge thing that she said, "You absolutely cannot do this. Do not do this." So they had to put something together at the last minute, where it ended up that Jose was ended up saving this lady or baby or something like that from a fire at somebody's house, and the woman ended up making him go in and out and save like every single thing in the house, so he missed the game completely. So it's kind of a funny thing. But anyways, because of the original script saying something about Mrs. Krabappel, I had him sign it to Mrs. Krabappel, and he said, "Wait, who's that? That's a strange name." I said, "It's Mrs. Krabappel from The Simpsons. You remember?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I remember now." It's kind of a funny thing. But I'm going to show you some other neat pictures I have here of The Simpsons. Whoops. It would help if I spell it right. Okay. So these are original pictures of Jose doing the voiceovers when he was at the Fox studio. So they gave him a jacket with the Bart Simpson patch there. And that's he and his wife, his first wife, Esther. And a picture of Lisa, black and white. And then this is the actual envelope that came in. So these are the originals that I got from somebody who was friends with, or neighbors, I guess, with his old housekeeper. So it's kind of a neat thing. Kind of a neat thing to add to my collection here. Because I'm a big fan of The Simpsons, and I haven't watched it for years really regularly. But The Simpsons, I mean, gosh, we quote The Simpsons from, at least weekly around here. I mean, it's kind of nutty, but it's fun. It's a funny show. So because we're only at 1992, I'm going to go ahead and stop here because we're running up on 45 minutes, and I want to keep these as semi-manageable as possible. So I'm sure I'm probably making a lot of people fall asleep at this point, but so I'll go ahead and stop now. And in the next video I do, I'll pick it up again at 1992 Donruss, and then we'll just kind of see where it goes. We'll see how far I can go with the amount of time that I have. So thanks for watching or listening, depending on whatever you're doing. I appreciate it, and feel free to check out my site again. It's tanmanbaseballfan.com. And my Canseco checklist, of course, is up at cansecocollector.com. When you go to cansecocollector.com, you can also click at the top to see my most wanted cards. And this doesn't have anything to do with the 1-of-1s, because I want all of those, or any 2016s yet. But you can search, and if you search Donruss, for instance, you can see the cards that I need still to have a complete set of complete run of the Donruss cards. Here's that Donruss blue chips that I don't have yet. And then, of course, I need a version of this with the exact border pattern with no black stripe on the back if it exists. So, and then there's a few other Donruss ones that are, these are all cards I need, but this is way down on the list, and like, not in terms of desire, because I want those probably more than the guys up top here, but there's a lot of them. There's 57 that I need out of all the Donruss versions. So again, thank you for watching, and just keep checking back, tanmanbaseballfan.com, as well as my YouTube channel, youtube.com/tanmanbaseballfan. And by the way, if you have Twitter, hit me up at tanmanbbfan, just to say hi or show me some cool cards that you have as well.